Hi, good morning everybody. Ooh, hot. I'm Alderman Matt Martin from the 47th Ward, just across the river, and I want to kick things off by welcoming you all to this wonderful event, this terrific ribbon cutting. Since I've been in office for the last several years, we've had the pleasure to work with Mayor Lightfoot, Commissioner Biagi, and many members of the administration on improving bike and pedestrian safety throughout the city, and in particular in the 47th Ward, the 33rd Ward. We have things like the North Center Town Square, protected bike lane along Campbell Avenue by Lane Tech and DePaul College Prep. This terrific river run, just a number of examples of the ways in which we're making sure that it's safer to walk and bike. There are a number of benefits that come from that. One, of course, is exercise. It's good for our bodies, good for our health to be out and about as much as possible. Also, from an environmental standpoint, it's the right thing to do. We're making sure that we're reducing emissions and doing our part in terms of being climate leaders in the city, in the state, and beyond. So I'm really happy to be participating in this ribbon cutting. I think this is an example of the ways in which we have folks from all levels of government, because this just wasn't just a city issue. The state kicked in and helped us make this a possibility, MWRD. So it's critical that we continue to work together to make sure that we can bring more infrastructure investments throughout our ward, or throughout our city, in the ways that reflect our values and needs. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce our mayor, Lori Lightfoot.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
You know, we have great moments with weather, even in the cold of winter. But I think the softer light of September is one of the most spectacular times in our city. So I'm very, very grateful to be out here on the river with all of you for what I think is truly, as the Alderman said, a manifestation of our continued commitment to making sure that our outdoor infrastructure matches and meets the needs of people across the city. So I'd like to recognize some of the other leaders who are here with me this morning. Barbara McGowan, Cook County Commissioner, and as I was just saying to her, a warrior for everything in her district, and just a true champion of the people. Commissioner McGowan, thank you so much for being with us. Also, I'm pleased to see Mariana Spiropoulos from the Water Reclamation District and a member of the Public Building Commission. We've been doing PBC meetings all year, but they're on Zoom, so the occasion to actually see each other in person is a special treat. I want to also thank and recognize Chicago Department of Transportation Commissioner Biagi, who you'll be hearing from, Chicago Park District Superintendent Mike Kelly, who you'll also be hearing from, Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning Executive Director Aaron Allman, and Active Transportation Alliance Campaign organizer Robert Schultz, and Friends of the Chicago River Executive Director Margaret Frisbee. In order for our residents to be able to lead happy, healthy, and stable lives, we not only need to create programs and initiatives that support their socioeconomic well-being, but we also need to build out the infrastructure to support those aspirations. That's why I'm thrilled to be here to cut the ribbon on the completed Irving Park Road Bridge project, which serves as our city's latest investment in the infrastructure residents rely upon every single day and cherish. Key to this new development is the River Bank Underbridge, which will not only provide pedestrians and bikers with a safe off-street multi-use trail that links California Park to Horner Park, but also caps off the 312 River Run, a recreational project that extends further south under Addison Street via the Riverview Bridge. In total, the 312 River Run project extends across 95 acres of park space, giving residents access to a range of Chicago Park District amenities, including wheelchair-accessible baseball fields, fitness centers, playgrounds, and more. And is also the direct result of an incredible partnership our Department of Transportation, Department of Planning, and the Parks District, as well as partnership with a range of different not-for-profit partners. Now with this new Underbridge Trail, their teams have achieved the ambitious goal of creating a continuous off-street path from Belmont to Montrose that eliminates the need for pedestrians and bikers to cross Addison and Irving Park Road, and that obviously adds to safety. To some, this trail and the larger 312 River Run might seem insignificant, but as I mentioned earlier, these are the exact kinds of infrastructure investments we need to make in neighborhoods in order to fully protect the well-being of our residents. This path makes major connections to many of our city's premier attractions, including our beautiful parks. It also allows us to further prioritize the safety of walkers, runners, and bikers, and adds to our growing list of low-carbon, river restoration-focused infrastructure developments. As we continue to emerge from the pandemic and renew our efforts to create climate change, open spaces, trails, and other dedicated infrastructure for walking and biking will not only reduce emissions, but directly support the physical and mental health of our residents. Here in Chicago, and especially during my administration, we have always placed a huge emphasis on investing in the lives of our residents through the power of infrastructure. That's why we created the Chicago Works Capital Plan, which is the largest capital plan in our city has seen in years. And that's why we're particularly thrilled to see the Biden administration take a leadership role when it comes to improving and creating infrastructure Americans need in order to thrive. Infrastructure is something we always talk about, and it's particularly always talked about at the federal level. But I'm hoping on September 27th, when the House is scheduled to vote, that we will actually see an infrastructure package come out of the federal government and go to the president's desk, so we make good on the promises and not just talk, but we can actually see real action backed by federal dollars in the city of Chicago. As a global transportation hub, Chicago is uniquely positioned to benefit from federal infrastructure investments, which will play an important role in our cities and our country's post-pandemic economic recovery. As a result, we welcome robust investment in traditional infrastructure resources to keep our city running, and we strongly support the implementation of new, innovative infrastructure investments that approach and address climate change and meet our residents' needs. You know, we are known as a city in part because of our beautiful lake, and our lake is stunning and separates us from other places in the country. But we need not forget that we are also a city of rivers, and residents of this city from the beginning of our founding have used these rivers for commerce, for transportation, but now more than ever for leisure. So I'm grateful to be here today, excited about cutting the ribbon on this new investment and more to come. And now I'd like to invite Commissioner Biagi to say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor. And good morning. What a morning. I think to the mayor's point, I mean, we get these lovely days. We've got to use every bit of them. So I'm so excited to be here to talk about this project. It is one of hundreds of investments that we're making across the city as part of the Mayor's Chicago Works program. And it's, as you've heard and you'll continue to hear, it takes partners to make that happen. Whether that's the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning and Aaron Elliman, whether it's IDOT, who helped find the funds for this, MWRD, Friends of the River, Active Transportation Alliance, Commissioner Spiropoulos and Barbara McGowan, Senator Feigenholz, the list goes on and on. In fact, it keeps going, but we only have a few minutes for me here. So let's get into it. How did this project start? Well, it started in part with a 100-year-old bridge that needed to be replaced, that was at the end of its useful life, that has 34,000 vehicles going across it every day. And it also started with advocacy and partnership. And some of the groups that I mentioned and so many others were part of getting us to this point, that connected river trail that extends our city's second shoreline, that creates that seamless commute or recreational path for cyclists and walkers and everyone who wants to connect across neighborhoods. So it's not just connecting us to the river, it's connecting us to one another. So this was an $18 million project, and it's not only removal and replacement of the structure, it's also not the seamless trail that you're seeing, it's the river edge revetment, it's a couple of underbridge connections, and it's been a project that's, you know, taken, I think, and you'll hear from Commissioner Kelly on this, it's taken perseverance. It's something that we've been walking toward for a long time. It's important that we're here today to celebrate it together. So I mentioned partnership. In addition to all of the agencies with acronyms, we do have to thank the Federal Highway Administration that helped provide these funds along with IDOT. There's also the Army Corps of Engineers, the U.S. Coast Guard, the Illinois EPA, the IDNR. I mean, just imagine, that is like all the major food groups. We all had to come together to make this happen. So this is an example of what we can do when we do it together and what we're going to march forward on when it comes to that federal infrastructure bill. So I do want to thank the designer, Gannett Fleming, the general contractor, Granite Construction Company, the construction manager, Omega Associates, and then the team at CDOT, Chief Engineer Dan Burke, Deputy Commissioner Ozzie Chavez, Bridge Engineer Luis Benitez, Ann Zhang, Maura Kent, Scott Klazowski. It takes a team to do it, and we're so appreciative of all the effort. And please use the trail and connect yourself with our river and our parks. And with that, I want to introduce Superintendent Mike Kelly from the Chicago Park District.
I thought you forgot some. Good morning, everyone. I'm Superintendent Mike Kelly, and let me just give another shout out. Gia Biagi, former park alum, Barb McGowan, Commissioners Garcia, Commissioners Dubluquet. Do we have anyone else over at MWRD on the board? You never worked at the Park District, though, did you? I'll give you a shout out, but I was just giving shout out to the park alumni. And I want to give a shout out to all the park folks that are here today. Raise your hands, wave. What I want to talk about a little bit for a minute is I want to talk about not only what it is, but how we got here. Yesterday the mayor announced a very, very important project with the closure of the O'Hare modernization project. 16 years in the work. This wasn't quite 16 years, but this is an example of perseverance. This is an example of coordination. This is an example of cooperation. This is an example of working to get the resources to get these things done. 312, right? I think we're actually in the 773 area code now, but 312. 3 parks, 1 trail, 2 miles. No one can forget that. Some highlights. The Clark Park Boathouse is part of the 312. That was an effort of private fundraising, actually led by Commissioner Biagi at the time, and WMS. Kerry Wood Stadium. Kerry Wood Stadium, I met Kerry Wood when he was a young pitcher for the Cubs and still had a 12-6 curveball. And then he went to the Indians, and then he went to the Yankees, and then he came back to the Cubs. And to his credit and the credit of the Cubs, he came back and still had that project in mind, a project we had discussed almost 10 years prior. McFetridge Sports Center, the added rink, the added sheet of ice at McFetridge Sports Center, something that the community was clamoring for years about. The Army Corps of Engineers. My story with the Army Corps of Engineers is pretty relevant with everything that's going on right now. Colonel Aaron Reisinger closed the project out. He's in Seattle now with his family where he grew up. Chris Drew was a colonel at one point with the Army Corps, but I want to give a shout out to Fred Drummond. And last I heard, Fred's down in Tampa right now, but Fred Drummond, literally his last project was that Horner Park bank stabilization. He did a community meeting, and it wasn't easy. There was a lot of pushback on this project, but he stood up, he took every question, he did it with honor, and at the end of it, he announced, we are doing the Horner Park bank stabilization, and I'm being deployed to Afghanistan tomorrow. And I'll never forget Fred that day. Oh, the dog-friendly area. I saw John, Peter Schlossberg, the community, anybody who's involved. I mean, shout out to you guys. I want to give a shout to Mary Dempsey, a great partner, moving DePaul Prep from the Gordon Tech site to where it is today. They're another great partner of the 312. And of course, Margaret Frisbee in the river. And I'd asked Margaret prior to this, I said, when did we remove that dam? That was a big deal. Dam removal. When did we remove it? She said 2018. I said, when did we start talking about the dam removal? She goes, 2002. So if that doesn't sum up perseverance and us working together and knuckling under to stay on this and the dogged diligence, I don't know what does. So I'll leave you with this. The 312 is a model not only for Chicago but the nation. This is an amazing, amazing project where you take CDOT in the Park District, in the city, in the planners, in the innovators, in the fundraisers to connect all this together. This is something that will be modeled, I guarantee, not only in Chicago, because we can do this anywhere. We don't have a river everywhere, but we can do this anywhere, and of course in the country. So I want to thank you all for listening to me. I do want to say I know there's been a lot of questions. I do want to talk about life rings and all that afterwards, but I think let's get through this. Let's cut a ribbon, then Mayor, if I could have the mic just for a quick second, sure. I'd like to update everybody on the life rings. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce my friend Margaret Frisbee, the Executive Director of Friends of the Chicago River.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Mayor Lightfoot, Commissioner Biagi, the commissioners from the Water Reclamation District, and all the other partners who are here today. As Mike just said, these works take a long time. In fact, the Horner Park project, I worked at Friends of the Chicago River about 2 months in 2020, the first time we walked the site looking at that riverbank, and the enthusiasm that the council, the Park Advisory Council had, the Park District had, and it took a long time. And I was at all those meetings in the basement, and it was a lot of people working together to get that done, and that's what's happened here. And we could not be more proud at Friends of the Chicago River to be part of these kinds of innovative works that bring people to the river. The Chicago River system belongs to everybody, and these projects make it possible for all of us to experience the nature, the beauty, the magic, and also to get outside and get healthy. We saw over the last year and a half, people need this. We need natural spaces. There are studies all over the entire world that show access to natural areas makes people healthier physically, their mental health is improved, and frankly, just being out in nature is good. Observing what's around you. We're at a point where the climate crisis and so many things are so complicated, and if we preserve our natural areas, we preserve our rivers, our lakes, our parks, our forest preserves, and we look at them together as one big system, we can actually create a sustainable city, a sustainable state, a universe all together. And we are just pleased as we could possibly be by the leadership of the city, the Park District, and all these partners. It takes a long time. And frankly, you know, Friends started in 1979 because of an article called Our Friendless River. And what we see today when projects like this are founded is we know our river isn't friendless anymore. And we have a bright future. This is an evolving, wonderful natural resource. We already have protected it for swimming. And my call to action today is let's get there. So thank you very much. And it's my pleasure to announce that now we get to cut the ribbon. So everyone come on over here.
One more speaker.
Oh, one more speaker. I'm sorry.
So I gave my friend Barbara McGowan a different title. She's actually an MWRD commissioner, and I invite her to say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. I want to ask my colleague, Mariana Spiropoulos, to step up here with me. Commissioner, will you join me at the podium, please?
I'm right here.
No, at the podium.
Supporting you all the way.
At the podium.
I'm good here. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I just thought I'd extend that invitation to you.
And I appreciate that.
You are more than welcome. We make more than 8,000 acres of land available for green space and recreational use to connect more people with their waterways. We're proud to play a small part in helping unveil today's trail. It's a fine addition to our riverfront and terrific connection to nature for bike riders and walkers alike. Look at what we can do when we work together. That's right. Give yourselves a hand, because we all did this. Let me say congratulations to everyone, and thank you for coming out this morning to join us in celebrating this wonderful event. Thank you.
All right, now to the ribbon cutting.
Testing, 1, 2.
Let me know when you guys are all set up. Okay. Yeah, no, I got you. That's what we're talking about today. Cooperation, partnership. Yep. Are we all good? So again, I'm Mike Kelly. I'm the General Superintendent and CEO of the Chicago Park District. I just wanted to take this opportunity, since we had all the cameras out here on this beautiful day on Friday, I wanted to update everyone on where we're at with life rings. There's been a lot, obviously, talked about life rings. We had a very open and transparent board meeting on Wednesday, and a lot of discussion between my administration, the Park District Board, and our General Counsel. But I know that a lot of people didn't cover it. So I just want to sort of go through what our 5-point, in my mind, 6-point plan is, and then some of the action that's going to come out of that immediately. So number one, and I should start with, on behalf of everyone at the Chicago Park District and our board, extend our sincerest condolences to the family. It goes without saying, folks, whether it's in a park, on the lakefront, or anywhere in our system, you see it on the faces of my people. We're a big organization with almost 7,500 employees, but when we lose a life, especially if it's a child, it wears on all of us. And I think that needed to be said, and I hope the family accepts it. It's tough. It's tough on all of us. And I say that on behalf of every woman and man that works at the Chicago Park District. So obviously, with the incident, we've done a lot of homework, a lot of discussion. We've consulted our experts, and we've come up with a 6-point plan that's been supported by our law department and our board. And I'm here to deliver the message. Number one, increase signage. Folks, I cannot stress enough. People should not be swimming where it says do not swim. This system, this 26 miles of lakefront, these miles and miles of river, these hundreds of acres of lagoon and Lake Calumet, if it says do not swim there. So we're going to increase our signage everywhere we can. Obviously, there's going to be a tremendous amount of community outreach. There's going to be a tremendous amount of partnership and education. We're going to get back into public schools. The challenge we've had at the Chicago Park District, as long as I can remember, is every child should learn how to swim by the 4th grade. COVID set us back because of the rules and regulations, but in 22 we'll be right back at it, hopefully. And we've got to get back and we'll learn to swim. We've got to get back into teaching the next generation about water safety and what you should do and what you shouldn't do around Lake Michigan. Number 3, we're creating an e-acknowledgement, starting in our winter registration. As you guys all know, hundreds of thousands of people register for our programs. We've all gone through it where you have to accept those conditions, you have to accept that thing. Every time you register for our program, every time, whether you're a child, a parent, or a senior, you're going to have to acknowledge the water safety regulations, be aware of the areas that are do not swim. It's just a subtle reminder, folks, about how glorious our lake can be and how dangerous it can be. Number 4 is our Life Ring pilot program, and obviously there's been a ton of discussion about Life Ring, and I want to be clear, and I'll get right to the punchline. I've asked my staff, in spite of discussion with our lawyers, in spite of my discussions with the board, I'm going to take the initiative, and we're going to install life rings as soon as I can get my hands on them at Pratt Beach, hopefully this weekend. We do intend on installing life rings throughout the winter and throughout as long as the weather cooperates, on all manned locations. On all manned locations. Why? We still firmly believe we should not be encouraging or getting any false sense of security that life ring will save your life in an area that's do not to swim. And we're not just looking at the lakefront. We're certainly not just looking at Rogers Park, because you do for one, you do for all in this city. We're looking at the entire lakefront. We're looking at the Park District controlled areas of the river. We're looking at the lagoons, and we're looking at the Lake Calumet area. Number 5 is restrict access. That's a last resort. Fencing, restricting access, essentially removing any impediment for somebody to get to a certain area and do not swim. We're reserving the right to do that, but I'm not here to announce that today. That's not something we're doing today. And then last is a challenge to all of us, and sort of on this Friday in a spirit of cooperation, we're going to work. I want to work with the state. I want to change the statutes and the state law. I want to work to make it more friendly for the Chicago Park District and other government agencies to put these life rings up. And come come up with a better law for Illinois. So with that, Mayor, do you want me to turn the podium over to you, or should I take questions first?
I'm sure the questions will come.
Yeah. All right. Well.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Before I take questions, let me just, I think, highlight a few of the things that Superintendent Kelly just said. And first of all, thank you, because there has been a tremendous amount of conversation and concern about the life rings and about the lake. I want to say a few things about that, but also myself also offer my sincere condolences to the family and friends of Miguel Cisneros, his mother, Ms. Diaz. It's hard to fathom losing a child under any circumstances, and I can appreciate as a mother some sense of what her grief is, but no one walks in her shoes. But we ought to offer her not just our condolences, but our love and support as she moves through this very difficult time in losing her child. Let me also just say this. The lake is beautiful. There's no question about it. It certainly calls us on a bright, sunny day like today, but the lake is also dangerous. Having spent a lot of time talking to Superintendent Kelly and other folks at the parks, but also talking to the fire department, the CPD Marine Rescue folks, people should not take unnecessary risk. Be careful. And while I believe that we absolutely need to expand the availability of the life rings, they are not a panacea to common sense and being smart about how you engage with bodies of water. When you think about the river, people do swim in the river, but there are unknown challenges and risk underneath those waters. The same with the lake. So I am in favor of the things that Superintendent Kelly talked about, but first and foremost, educating ourselves about how to use these magnificent bodies of water, but do it safely. And I'm all in favor of making sure that we continue to give opportunities for kids, but also adults, to learn how to swim. It's something that will give you lifelong pleasure and benefit, but also demystify the fear that I think a lot of people have with our waterways if you know how to swim. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions on any topic, as always.
All right, members of the media, my colleague Victor will pass the mic down to you. 2 questions for reporters. Let's kick it off with Craig Wall, ABC 7.
Mayor, let me just follow up on the life rings, if I could, and then I have a different topic I want to touch on. Mm-hmm. Was it a mistake for the Park District to keep removing those life rings out there? Wasn't that kind of, it might be perceived as a slap in the face to the family?
Look, I think what we need to do is focus on how we can go forward. The life rings are important. To my simple mind, they're like a fire extinguisher, right? You don't want to encourage people to burn the buildings down, but if there's an emergency, you have it there. The life rings are the same thing. So where we start with this has got to be educating people about the risk inherent in going into Lake Michigan. There's a lot of undertows up and down the lakefront. It looks calm, but we know every year people are challenged by struggles that they have with the lakes. We've got to just keep educating people about how to enjoy this beautiful, incredible asset that we have, but do it safely. And I do think that adding the life rings are going to be important, but it's got to be coupled with the signage and the awareness of the risk and dangers inherent in the body of water.
I wanted to ask you about this letter that some of the aldermen have sent to Dr. Arwady requiring that there be a proof of vaccination, to get into restaurants, gyms, any place indoors. Mm-hmm. Do you support that, or where do you stand?
Well, here's what I think. Number one, I've been a broken record about this, and I will continue to be. We've got to get more people vaccinated, period, full stop. We know that 97% of the people that are unvaccinated are the ones that are laying in ICU beds, suffering from COVID conditions, and are dying. They are almost exclusively people that are unvaccinated. That's not acceptable to me, and it shouldn't be acceptable to anyone else. And I know that we're at a point where a lot of low-hanging fruit has already been picked up, but we've got to continue our push to get people vaccinated. I'm encouraged by the number of businesses and venues across the city that have said, if you're going to patronize us, if you're going to come through our doors, you must be vaccinated or you must show proof of a negative test within a certain period of time. I applaud those businesses who are doing that. I think that that's a step in the right direction. But fundamentally, what our focus is going to be as a city, CDPH, is getting more people vaccinated. We have neighborhoods in our city where the vaccination rate is 40% or lower. That's not acceptable, because that means 60% of the people that live in those communities are unnecessarily putting themselves at risk. So I'm not going to rest until we do everything possible to significantly increase the percentage of people who are vaccinated. I applaud the announcement that the president made yesterday about mandating vaccinations for employees across the country. As I understand it, that's 2/3 of the workforce is now going to be subject to the mandate that the president detailed yesterday. But the answer to all these questions is get vaxxed, get vaxxed, get vaxxed. What I've said is I applaud those businesses and venues that are requiring vaccination proof or a negative test in order to get admittance, and I think we're going to see more of that. This is a conversation that's happening literally across every industry sector, and we support it. I think the best path forward is for us to focus city energy and resources on getting more people vaccinated. And then working, of course, with our partners in the private sector so that they can implement what makes sense for them.
Heather Sharon, WTTW.
Hi, Mayor. Can I have a question for Superintendent Kelly, and then we'll come back to you?
Sure.
Can you specifically say what will be different at like Pratt Pier with the life rings? Will life rings only be at manned location, or will they be at locations like the piers where people swim against the rules?
So that's a good question. I'm glad you asked it. For now, this is a pilot program. There will be a life ring at Pratt Beach, which is normally a manned location. There will be a life ring on the pier as well. I don't love that decision. I cannot stress enough, folks. We're in the life safety business. We're in the teach kids to swim business. That anything that gives a semblance of comfort to going in that water where it says do not swim, but we're going to do it. I'm not above the city. I'm not above the citizenry, and you know, I have a loved one that was saved by a life ring years ago on the Chicago River. So I get it. It doesn't make my job any easier. It doesn't make my job any easier as the head of the park district, but this decision needs to be made. There will be a life ring on the pier. There will be a life ring at the beach. There will be life rings on all manned beaches, and it will grow into this program as we go. Hopefully we can get some movement from the state on the state law, and we can come up with a dynamite program.
If I can beg your indulgence, I'll ask Craig's question to you. Do you regret removing the life rings that were put there by members of the community?
No.
Why not?
I don't regret it. I don't regret it. I think I made the right decision then. I think I'm making the right decision now.
Okay. Mayor, there's been a significant amount of reporting from WTTW and Block Club Chicago that Alderman Jim Garner has repeatedly abused his power as a public official to target those that he does not agree with and who have organized protests against them. What sort of sanctions should he face from the city, and what do you say to those people who have been targeted by their aldermen for expressing their political viewpoints?
Well, first and foremost, no one should ever be denied access to city services because of their political opinion, who they may have supported in an election. That's just not how we do things. I'm the mayor for the entire city. People agree with me, people who don't agree with me, but we're never going to support any effort to deny people access to city services. It's fundamental. So what I think ought to happen is, and we're doing this morning, is recommending that rather than death by 1,000 cuts and rumor and innuendo in the media, there ought to be a fulsome investigation. We're going to recommend to the Inspector General's office that investigation happen, so we can actually get to the bottom of what did happen versus what didn't happen.
Have you spoken to
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Say again.
Have you spoken to Alderman Gardner and told him to stop this behavior?
I spoke to Alderman Gardner over a week ago when the allegations first arose, and at that time the allegations were really focused on what I thought disparaging conduct and comments about women. I was not unsparing in telling him that I thought the words that were attributed to him were absolutely unacceptable. And I've been public about the fact that he and I had that conversation. I also did say to him at the time that the allegation that he was denying access to city services on the part of anybody who, just because they supported somebody different in an election, was just not acceptable. Obviously, there's been more reporting on that since last week, but my position on this is very clear. One, there are certain words that should never, ever, ever be said or written, and definitely not about women. That's not acceptable. And I've been very clear with him and very clear with anybody who's asked me about it. Some things just absolutely shouldn't be said. I know that at times people get frustrated. I get frustrated. Sometimes you put things in writing that you regret. But a consistent pattern of using what I would say is misogynistic language about women, unacceptable. Totally, utterly unacceptable. And again, I'll repeat what I've already said, which is under no circumstances, any circumstances, should a resident be denied access to city services simply because of their political choice or affiliation. That's not okay either.
Thank you, Mayor. Justin Lawrence, Block Club.
Hi, Mayor. Over here.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So you're set to, sorry, this is off topic. Okay. You're set to introduce the ordinance going after street gangs, alleged street gang members' finances on Monday. I'm hoping maybe you could just explain, I know you're an attorney as well, but just in plain English, what that allows you to do and why it's needed now.
Here's what I know. People across the city are fearful. They're afraid for their own personal safety. And one of the things that have been identified is their fear of gangs. We know that there are some really organized gangs who profit from the blood that they spill in the streets. That's unacceptable to me, and I think it's unacceptable to most residents of this city. What we are proposing is a tool in civil courts that gives us the opportunity to go after those gangs that are wreaking havoc, and in particular, take away the profit motive from them by seizing assets that they have been able to purchase because of their violent activity in our neighborhoods. This isn't what, from the 1990s. This is filing a complaint, going into court, and the chips will fall where they may. A judge will be the arbiter of whether or not we've been able to make our case or not. But we need additional civil tools to fight the fight against violent street gangs, and that's what I'm proposing, and I feel that there will be overwhelming support for this on the part of the City Council. Now, this is a tool. We don't step away from our commitment to making sure that we're providing lots of alternative ways to get to the issue of community safety. We've got to continue supporting, for example, things like street outreach. We've got to continue supporting not-for-profit organizations that reach out to young people and their families. But we have to also deal with the realities, which is there are some violent, awful street gangs that are terrorizing our neighborhoods. We have got to respond in every way that we conceivably can to our residents' desire to have peace in their neighborhoods and a tool to protect them against these violent street gangs that have demonstrated over and over again, almost on a daily basis, that they have no respect for the sanctity of life. Killing babies, killing children, killing old people indiscriminately, that is absolutely not acceptable. And we've got to put a marker down that as a city, we are using every tool in our toolkit to push back against these violent gangs that are leaving a trail of blood and death and misery in their wake.
And just as a follow-up to that, we've received some pushback from the ACLU, some aldermen. I was hoping you could respond to that. One, it seems that this is somewhat being rushed. It's a direct introduction. Why is it needed on this kind of expedited timeline? Sorry. Two, this mirrors a state law. Is this a bypass or a way to bypass the state's attorney's office?
No, it is not. The city of Chicago is a home rule entity. We have a responsibility to take care of the business that's happening in our streets, in our cities, on behalf of the residents. We can't wait for anybody else. Lots of people have different tools that they could use. And you'll have to ask them why or why not they're using them. But what I know is that we have an opportunity to bring these violent street gangs into civil court out of the shadows, expose them for what they are, and if we're successful, and I think we will be, take their assets and the profit motive for killing our babies. That's what this is about.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
He's got one more follow-up. Go ahead.
Just on the gang database, there's pushback on that as well because it's been criticized as flawed. Is it going to be overhauled? I believe that.
Man, we went through a lot of litigation, a lot of negotiation, came to a settlement about what the path forward was, laid out a specific set of criteria, really substantially shrunk the criteria and heightened the standards for putting anybody into that kind of database. That's been approved and sanctioned by a court. We're moving forward on that roadmap, and I believe it's up and operational. If it isn't, it will be in the coming days. We have to have a tool to make sure that we understand the people who are dangerous in our neighborhoods. We have to have that tool. It is not acceptable for the police department or other law enforcement to not be operating with the best kind of intelligence that they can. And I understand that there are concerns, which is precisely why we blew up the old standards. We changed them. We were very transparent about it. We negotiated who, what, and where was going to be with the plaintiffs in that case, sanctioned by a court, and we're moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you, Mayor.